Hello and welcome to the Hitout. This is Zero Hangers AFL podcast, weekly podcast where we talk about AFL. I am your host, Phoenix Trinidad. I'm with editor Mitch Keating. Hey, mate.
Good, mate. We're in SA. We're in our studio.
Yeah,
the corner of the apartment that we've got for the week over in Gather Round. But we've dolled it up quite nicely, so
I think it works.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, so we're here at Gather Round. Obviously, we're going to go through everything that happened at Gather Round. We'll talk about the games that we got to, and so I reckon let's just crack in. So, what did we rate about 2025 Gather Round? What we liked, what we didn't like? We drove here. That's my first thing. Is the drive was pretty fun. You did all right.
I didn't mind it. Yeah, it was like, well, you did all the driving.
Yeah.
So that was
good.
It was good for me. I didn't mind it. It was like there's not like a lot happening.
Nah.
But there's a lot of places you can stop in and out, which was nice. Like we went to Horsham and Dimboola and Neil, and they're all quite nice little stopovers. Keith on the other side of the border.
Yeah.
Tailem Town.
Keith Fried Chicken.
And then Keith Fried Chicken was good. And then we ended up driving through like Mount Barker up on the hills, which was nice right before you get into the city of Adelaide. So it was really good. If you want to go check out our road trip video, you can on YouTube.
Yeah, full vlog on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, a bit of fun in that one.
It was the drive itself. Yeah, is quite boring. The things that you get to see along the way are fine. It's fun. That's the longest drive I've ever done that. So I think that's what came into play for me. I've never done a drive that long. I don't think you have either. But not since like I've been driving. So this probably goes. We're probably jumping ahead a bit here. But if we're coming back next year, would you drive again? Or
I didn't mind it. I thought we flew. We were here last year. For people who didn't know, we were here last year and we flew over. The Jetstar lost our bags, so we didn't really lose our bags this year, which is fine.
Yeah.
However, I was thinking like if I was coming over with mates, like you kind of just doing like not for work.
Am I not your mate?
No, you know what I mean. As in, if we were coming over. Okay, you were in this proverbial situation.
Yeah.
If we were coming over in as like a group and you're kind of, just like a trip, not working, I wouldn't mind the drive over, I think.
Yeah. It will be fun. It's handy to have a car.
Yeah, that's
especially if you're going out to Barossa, going out to Mount Barker or wherever they choose to have another game.
That was pretty much the reason why we drove, was because we wanted to actually get out of the city a little bit while we're over here. And that was a big benefit for sure.
Yeah.
But to be fair, it seemed like this state had done a pretty good job of getting transport out there, or if you're out in that area, getting you to the footy out in Lindock. So they did a pretty good job there as well.
Yeah. So if you're planning on coming next year, I highly recommend driving or having a car at least.
Like if there's 4 of you, you do 2-hour shifts and you're there, and you've probably got 2 stopovers if you want to get there timely. Like it took us, I think, over 11 hours just because we were stopping off a fair bit. But I liked the drive. Yeah, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah. What else did you like? What did you like?
Well, the vibes are always good. Like you're just walking through, and you don't even have to be in the busy part of Adelaide to just see like footy people all around. Like whether it's players, coaches, media people, football adjacent people. Like there's just so many around and so many people that you kind of run into and be able to say hello to, or So that was pretty cool. The Adelaide Oval is perhaps one of the best venues to watch footy. Perhaps the best venue to watch footy, I should say. Like you can test it. Pac G doesn't get beaten, but Adelaide Oval is just so nice that when you got 50k there, whether you're on the hill or you're up even at the top tier, or bottom or on the members side. So it's such a great place. I do want to come here and watch the cricket. I haven't watched the cricket at Adelaide Oval, so.
Speaking of that, we spoke to what's his name, the cricket commentator.
Barat. Yeah.
So spoke to him. He's one of the guys that you just sort of run into here. He stands out a bit, and then he was quoted as saying that like the MCG sort of it intimidates you a little bit because of how big it is and everything. But Adelaide Oval is more of a vibe, which I agree with. I think that's. I will
get into 2 little gripes with Adelaide Oval though.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, one of them might not be related to Adelaide Oval exactly, but it's where we were. So the first one was just kind of. Obviously, it's so packed. Like 50k in that stadium is great, but at the same time, it's so hard to get around. Like walking from one side of the stadium to the other, which I did a couple times, took me ages.
I think it's just that one wing, not the member
Like
side
between the
wing,
hill,
the other wing.
between the hill and the other wing and the
Riverbank.
No, kind of that side, like on the sides,
The non-broadcast side.
non-broadcast side,
Is
where all
very
the
packed.
Gavin Wang and in stand is. That is so tight and congested. So that was a bit annoying, but like
The other side
that's the worst thing. It's not too bad.
I think so. If you've never been the other side, the broadcast side, that's easier to get around because you have like
So
that
open out the
outside
back.
bit,
Yeah.
but you have to, and you walk through the members. Also, if you walk through the members, that's just such a fun time. I don't know if you
Heaps
can.
happening.
You can just generally
Whoa.
walk through there, can't you?
I didn't actually have to this year. I can't really remember.
Because you go around the outside.
But anyway, my second kind of issue was just the pricing of everything. Like, I can understand that stuff will like spike and it's great for the economy and stuff, but like $8.70 for a Gatorade is like, or like a soft drink or something. I was like, you know, if you want a beer, you know you're going to be paying like $13, $14, and it's kind of, it's not ideal anyway. But even if you just want something non-alcoholic, like you're paying $8, $9, and I was just like, oh my god.
We're in the privileged position of work is expensing a few of these things, but yeah, if you're
Not the beers.
that I think that's more of a that's something that is where the election comes into play. I think the cost of living. It's not just an Adelaide Oval thing, but it is.
Like,
I can't imagine if you're here for the whole weekend, like how much you would spend if work isn't paying for it. Which luckily,
well, and it's the other
it is
thing,
for
like
us.
people who would have paid for high-priced flights and then high-priced accommodation because it probably spikes over around this weekend. And I think some of like the local businesses, that was fine. I was happy to pay premiums on their kind of stuff. But when it's like, you know, like Adelaide Oval and some of the other stuff that was just like crazy spikes in prices. I was like, if you are paying it from your hip pocket, it does add up over what can be a pretty long weekend. So look, outside of that, like if that's the biggest problem, I'm okay with that. But obviously it can be a bit of an issue for others. But no, actually one weird thing Adelaide has is their traffic lights. Like, why do their green man turns into a flashing red in 2 seconds?
Yeah,
I don't know what the issue is there, but
every time you cross a road in Adelaide, you're hustling across the road.
Yeah, it's just like
the amount of
flashing
times people are, like nobody just walks casually across the road.
Yeah.
They're like they've got a little hustle. in
yeah,
it.
it's just straight away, just like, oh, it's red. Oh, shit.
My only gripe is, and this isn't Adelaide Oval's fault, but. Like,
But this has been. We're just slamming Adelaide
No, it's
Oval,
just
even
that
though we're
when you're
just
on the
talking
hill,
it up.
I think the hill needs to be slightly steeper so that because like as a short king who's 5'5", you do need to pick like a gap in between people.
If you're in the
see.
front half of the hill, it's actually pretty good. If you're on the backside, it does flatten out a little bit. So I think that's.
But then it's not even like most people can only see from like maybe the like center line or the center square to the opposite end of the goals. So like if you're up the back, it's so hard to see the forward pocket and everything. But the vibe itself is the hill is unbeatable.
Can't question it.
Yeah. All right. Let's
Should we
anything
talk
else?
footy?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
talk some footy.
Yeah. So we went to a lot of games, too many. And we'll go game by game. So first one, obviously Adelaide versus Geelong. Yeah.
That was such a good start. Like that Tex goal straight away. Like you could script it, but you couldn't script that really. like him just fending off blitzer, snapping one from 40 near the boundary. Straight away, just got everyone. And the whole first half was so energetic. Such a great contest of
The whole game was
two
pretty
clubs
energetic.
that will be competing pretty high up this year. And then Geelong just kind of overcoming the Crows in the second half. But yeah, you're right. It was like still tightly contested and a lot of upset Crows fans post game. But to be fair, I think it's just you still want to be coming away from that pretty happy with the performance your team's putting up. They didn't fall away, I didn't think, as much as the Cats overran them at the end. It was just a good game between two good clubs.
Yeah, that was the vibe I got from, obviously, because that was the first game. And then I was speaking to a lot of Adelaide fans over the weekend. And most people were, upset, but they're still pretty optimistic about the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of guys say that they're going to win the premiership still. And maybe, I'm not writing them off. Like if you're going to win the premiership, you need a little bit of adversity throughout the season. But you do want to be winning those hard games, especially at home. But yeah, they're down in defence, but their forward line looks so good.
Yeah, I think when they get Nick Murray back, that might help. But the thing is, like, they had such a clean preseason on an injury front. I think 91% of their list completed a full preseason, which is just like unheard of almost. So that's a big bonus for them early into the season. But it's really hard to stay fit for a whole year. And a lot of the time when you look at the premiership sides that won, it was because they stayed fit. So it could go, quite
Health
up.
is
It
your
can,
best player.
yeah, availability is the best ability or whatever it's called. But I think if they can stay fit, which is easier said than done, then they'll be there pretty deep into the season.
Geelong?
Big ticks. Yeah, you've got to be happy with that. They also had a bit of a makeshift back line, but that's what they do so well is just being able to pivot players around. Like you can throw Sam de Koning back, and then you've got your Connor O'Sullivans to rely on, and Mark Blicavs can play back and ruck. If Reece Stanley, they can just use in the ruck. So they're able to shift around so easily.
Yeah.
And then they just have so many of these like role players and your break closers and your Ollie Dempsey's in the front half.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
It's so hard to, if you put the clamps on Tyson Stengel and Grime Wise, you've got those two. And if you do a pretty good job on, a Bailey Smith or a Max Holmes who got off the chain a little bit, but then Tom Atkins is going to do some damage as well on the defensive end. Jeremy Cameron hasn't had the start that many thought, but he's still kicking heaps of goals. It's just fascinating the type of return he gets on what some might consider a quieter game. And then Paddy Dangerfield up forward at 35. Jeez, it's going to be such a weapon for them if he can stay at that level and stay fit for the entire year.
Yeah. Also, formal apology to I did this on TikTok, but formal apology to the Crows fans. We uploaded a video of a Crows fan in some pretty good merch. He had 119 on the back, obviously alluding to the Geelong Port Grand Final.
Shout out to the
QR
project.
code. And then that ended up being the winning score for Geelong.
Backfired pretty quick.
Yeah, good to. Oh, and last one, Bailey Smith. I loved it. Like just giving it back giving it back to the Crows fans. We've had a bit of that this year, so I think players seem to. I kind of rate it. Like they're letting their personality come out a bit more.
It sounded like there was
bad for the kids, but I think it's fine.
It sounded like there was some choice words for Dangerfield.
Yeah.
From what I'm assuming was a Crows fan.
Yeah.
Which he'd be used to, but then Bailey Smith was just kind of there, and he's probably like, I can cop $1,000.
Yeah.
If I just stand up for the skipper and stuff. So
rate it.
It's kind of one of those ones like not ideal, but at the same time I can understand it. We move on.
I think, and to me, it's all just part of the footy banter. But I wonder.
And then if you do an aeroplane on the field, you get 20K. So,
But I also wonder what the level, like, if it's heightened here during gather round compared to.
I felt there was so many games that felt like finals, and that was one of them.
Yeah,
the atmosphere was at a higher degree than most other games. Like you'll get to Anzac Day in a couple of weeks, and that'll be at that similar level.
Collingwood Sydney.
Pies look good.
Yep.
Pies look good. Sydney have a few question marks. They're a bit of a funny one. And obviously there are a few men down, but so are the Pies as well. But they look great. I'll touch on someone who I have significantly misjudged over the past couple seasons from Collingwood later in the show. But Ned Long was such a big tick. He finally got his look at a full game. I think it was his second full game for the year after being the sub the last 2 weeks. And God, he just works so well on both sides. Nick Dacos as well, doing his best. But Craig McRae was rapt to see he had 9 tackles, which is just, trying to add another layer to his game. Their small forwards, so potent. Their backline's holding up really well despite, the Nathan Murphy stuff, and then into Reef McInnes as well. So that's been positives for them. They wanted to stay in the hunt for a flag this year. And it's looking pretty nice. And they've got a nice kind of matchup coming up this week against the Lions.
Yep. I don't have much to say about this game, but it was good to see the amount of them pretty much pack out Adelaide Oval for two neutral teams.
40, I can't remember what it was. Odd? I want to say 41, but I feel like that was low. It might have been a bit more. I think it was 49. I think 41 was the Saturday Arvo game at Adelaide Oval. So
it started empty. It emptied a little early, but that
was good.
Yeah, at its peak, it was a great game. Good atmosphere for neutral fans. Essendon Melbourne
next.
Yeah. This was
this is. It was just the same Melbourne we've really seen the last couple of years. I think I don't know what they ended up with, but I think they had 2 goals in their first 26 forward entries.
Yeah. I think it was 2 goals at halftime.
The amount of
halftime, close halfway.
Well, I think it might have been halfway through the third when they had those 26 entries.
Yeah.
But it's just the amount of times that they're territory is such a big part of the game. The amount of times they're kicking to the goal square, and it's just falling in between that that area where you're probably going to have more space and the actual goal line where you can impact the scoreboard. And too many times it was falling into that zone where Essendon just had the numbers and it just didn't work out for Melbourne at all. A bit of a fight back, which was great, but
even
just didn't get close.
Just our even when they did start lowering the eyes, they still weren't great entries. So the first half was basically just us kicking deep into that forward.
I think one of your goals was from a 50-metre penalty. So it's like, it just kind of goes to show.
But it's everybody seems to have the same issue, and it's been the same issue for the past, let's say, definitely this year and last year.
I'd say 18 months.
When those probably. 2 years after the grand final where we were made final,
top
finals
4.
contending. It wasn't that bad, but that was there.
It was an issue, but it wasn't like so big that it was becoming this thing. Yeah. And now it has become this big thing. So credit to Essendon though. We won't have to touch on the D's too much. They're looking nice. I think the midfield was obviously, still pretty solid. Like Zach Merritt's just doing his thing as always, but it's really important to see the players that step up around him. Like Durham was good. Will Setterfield did a pretty good job on Clayton Oliver. There's probably another I'm forgetting, but they'll get Parrish back eventually. Elijah Sardis isn't getting a game again, so it's quite a deep batting midfield.
Katie looked good.
Katie looked good. Zach Reid looked good. Like they've got these young guys who are just getting the needed minutes and putting up good performances. So for a side who was also without a couple of important players, and they'll now be, it sounds like, without Nick Bryan for a while, they're adapting quite well to some situations, and this is a win they were probably expected to get. Not outlandish favourites, but favoured to get a win, and they'll roll into West Coast next week, which means that they could have 3 in a row after knocking off Port before the bye. So that's what you want. Just go from one win to the other. Yeah,
I'm still not sold on them being a top 8 team.
No, I wouldn't have them in my
think
top 8.
they're doing what they need to do at the moment. Next one, we went out to the Barossa for Richmond versus FREO. One of the best, probably the highlight of the weekend for me. Probably because we played golf beforehand and went to a winery, but also the vibe at the Barossa is unreal. They've done such
really good.
Credit to the AFL. Like we I shit on them a lot, but they've done very well with the Barossa game.
I don't reckon the broadcast does. I didn't get to see much of Saturday's broadcast game.
Yeah.
At between Gold Coast and North, but from what I only saw from highlights and stuff, when you're on the broadcast side, it's so much better than on that far side where they've kind of got the kind of rafters or bleacher kind of things put up on that. So the broadcast side is so good. The clubhouse, like the pavilion, all the standing room up on the wing. Such a great place to watch footy. Good.
It's unfortunate that it was so hot.
It was scorching
and they had to cut down all the trees apparently to fit in the bleachers and everything.
But you still had the nice hills in the background. And the valleys and stuff. So great place to watch footy. Okay game, like a 60-point win for FREO, but it was nice at half time when the Tigers were really giving them a crack, and I think it was just like tired legs in their youngsters from such a hot day.
I think FREO are going to be more used to playing in the heat like that.
That
compared
too.
To that young Richmond side.
Yeah. So on the footy itself, Josh Tracy's thought he was good last year. He's just doing another thing. Yeah, he had 3 pretty early, and then just I think he had all of them before 3/4 time. I think
he had 2 in about 30 seconds as well. He was in that first
just an absolute monster against it. It's not the best backline at Richmond. And if they get Noah Bolter back, we'll see. But they held their own for a little bit, but it's just the damn wall eventually breaks there. Brayshaw's having a year probably better than his 2022 when he won the AFL PA MVP. Like he's on one, and Sarong's been solid as well, just like what you want to expect from those two. So it's been very good for them.
The FREO have got a little bit of momentum now. I think they're going to be coming up against Melbourne next week, so they'll get the ball rolling. They can they did not start the season well, but this is the type of momentum you sort of need just to get some easy wins, and then build on that. I reckon they're still potentially maybe top 4 by the end of the year, but
I'd like to think they're still top 8. But top 4. I think there are other clubs maybe putting their hand up early. Long way to go. And then last night after that one,
What a game. So Port versus Hawthorn.
It's just nuts.
It was a crazy, like that start from Port, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I rolled in a little late. I think I got there 10
Yeah.
minutes into the game just because it had been such a day.
Yeah. So I was watching from the media box.
Yeah, but I could I was a while away from the ground and you can hear Never Tear Us Apart just going off.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. And then I think was it Joe Richards or Jackson Media kicked a goal and the whole crowd had just gone berserk and just like, and the stadium was all lit up in teal. So not even being in the ground, it was quite the atmosphere outside it. So that was pretty cool. And then you roll in and
vibes were high.
Vibes were high. Like, well, I was like back down on the hill, which seemed to be more of a Hawthorn kind of group. I think because a lot of the locals,
squad was
their cheer squad was there, but also like a lot of the locals might not be hill people as much, just given they're there every second week and they've got membership.
That
tickets
surprised
and
me
stuff.
about gathering. I thought I think the Adelaide game there was definitely a lot of Crows supporters on the hill, but then at the Port Adelaide game was
maybe it's just where I was, but it just seemed pretty Hawks dominant. But like the game itself just ridiculous. Was it like 70-8 at one point?
Yeah.
Hawks came back, made a bit of a contest, but just couldn't get the job done. It just seemed like the Hawks hadn't had the best run of metrics in midfield in a couple of their wins, and it looked like a club finally just made them pay. I can't remember if there was a deficit at all, but I think Sam Mitchell had said there had been areas of concern despite their undefeated start,
and then losing Will Day.
It's not a 60-point, 30-point deficit losing Will Day, but at the same time, it shifts a couple of little things around.
But it doesn't help getting jumped at the start.
And then you lose Connor Nash to an injury, who I think they said he could have played on. But anyway, it was just behind the ball. Port Adelaide set up fantastically well. Alir was absolutely awesome. Connor Rosé at halfback was a bit of a masterstroke in the end, even though he was able to kind of float forward and get a bit of an impact and kick a couple goals. So Ken would have been very happy with that after all the build-up. And now they just they move on.
We put that so we did a list of top 10 games.
It was easily going to be number one.
Yeah, that was number one, the must-see game. And then coming into the round, we're probably like, this might not be even worth watching. But what a way to end the series. I think that even like getting smashed, that's still an enjoyable thing to watch, just to see the energy and the vibes of the Port crowd. Like the emotional part of it was unreal. Standout performances of the week.
We'll mention Rose and Tracy. They're probably among them. Matt Rowell's efforts against North Melbourne were just massive. Like his outside work now, like he's always been that good contested inside midfielder, but he's just got this pace to burn. Bit of run on the outside, bit of transition work. I think that's why he's sitting atop our MVP leaderboard after round 5. So he's doing absolute wonders for the Suns, as are a lot of others, but he's obviously being that headline act for them for some time. And he's just been an absolute standout. Combination of Holmes and Smith was pretty good Thursday night. Rankin was very good. Sam Walsh, Paddy Cripps, George Hewitt, that trio just dominated the Eagles, which we'll talk on in a sec. But there's a fair few standouts from the weekend.
So should Gather Round remain in South Australia permanently? I think it's hard. It would be hard to take away from SA. They've got the Barossa going, and like they're back next year at least for the end of their contract. I think it is. So you'll be back at the Barossa again. I would have thought. Norwood's a nice little stadium and area of Adelaide to kind of tap into, and then everything's just so like nice and close together. The city's set up for it.
Like, obviously, you're not going to do Melbourne. Put a line through that one.
It's Gather Round in Melbourne every week.
Exactly. Sydney's probably a bit tricky, just given the distance between some of the stadiums. Like in a perfect world, it's like Magic Round where you're at one stadium all weekend, but you just can't. It just doesn't work.
Well, that is the question. Is like if it's not in SA, where is it? And like again, Sydney, Queensland, you can't. Brisbane, you can't. No, I mean Brisbane. Brisbane
only has one ground, but you're not going to do Brisbane and Gold Coast. Like
but
it's like an hour between.
It's like the issue with Sydney and Brisbane is that they're not, AFL Aussie rules cities.
But they
like neutrals.
It's what really they want, but they get opening round, which I think they're happy with. WA is probably the most obvious.
If that's going to stick around.
That too. WA is probably the next most obvious outside of SA, but at the same time, like
imagine
do they just have
people travelling to like the flights and stuff. Economically, I don't think it's that
Yeah,
viable.
I'm not really sure. Like, I haven't actually ever been to Perth, but they've got they've got Optus Stadium. They've got some of the waffle grounds, like Mineral Resources Park's probably the best one. I think they could, whether they play games at Claremont or South Freeman, I'm not really sure on those ones, but they probably just don't have. Also, like I think people want to go to what is it, Margaret River, and that's probably a little bit away. Like you can have a game down there, and it's probably similar to the Barossa, I guess. Now that they've got games there this year, but it might just be too far between everything. It might be a bit, and like you said, it's away from just about everything. It's a bit more expensive.
Yeah, I think less people are going to be inclined to travel to or like make the flight all the way to Perth, and every airline's going to have to put extra flights on, and they'll charge a lot for them
and make the time zone thing interesting. With you still got to satisfy broadcasts, where your majority is on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So if you've got a game, your first game's probably starting local at I don't know what, 1 o'clock, midday, like they did here, and that's starting at 2-3 o'clock on Melbourne Sydney time. So you're still you still probably can fit 3 games in, but
it'll be hard.
It's late. It's a bit late.
The other option that I've seen is Tassie.
Once they come in,
I don't mind it.
Like, they need the new stadium built though, which we just don't know. Don't know when that's going to happen. Yeah, like you've still got UTAS and we got Launceston and Hobart, so you've got those two.
But I like the idea of that too because of the conditions. Obviously, that's the main thing people talk about when they have to play in.
They're pretty far apart, aren't they? Hobart and Launceston.
Yeah, but I think it just would kind of add to it that it's just a crazy round where everybody's playing in the worst conditions possible.
Verdict: SA just has it forever.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, we haven't discussed NT, but I don't think.
No,
again, I don't think that's going to be
it's just like too tricky.
Yeah.
Not big enough stadiums either.
Yeah. Would be cool.
Yeah.
So Adelaide Oval is perfect for it. I have to give a shout out to, I'm not going to name her, but so when you go to the media box at Adelaide Oval, you have to take
Judy.
a secret. Well, I don't think we can dox her on the podcast.
Just giving out a full name.
Okay, Judy. Fine, Judy. So
Lovely lady.
Have you spoken to her?
Oh, every time I went to the other, she's the best.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, when you go to the media box, there's a special elevator you have to take. You need your accreditation, and Judy her whole job is just to do the elevator, just to
like the private,
let
because
the right people into the elevator.
Because it's all the hospo as well.
Yeah.
And all the people that work in the back end of the stadium.
Yeah, and she's
lovely.
the nicest person on earth, and she'll just have a chat to you while you're waiting for the elevator. I ended up having a chat for her. She's been working there for so long, and then she did the whole gather round weekend.
Yeah, she's there every time.
She's a veteran of the game, let's say, and
I've never been happier for my elevator to take so long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's so nice. Yeah. And then so I was having a chat to her. And then on the way out after the Port Hawthorn game, I just felt bad because I said on the way out, I was like, hopefully I'll see you here next year. Kind of implying that she might not make it to next year.
She'll retire.
Yeah, if she hears this, by some chance, if she hears this, Judy, I just want to make sure that's not what I meant. I just, I love your work, and I'm very impressed that you can stand around the whole weekend.
It's like when I left Sydney Collingwood at probably 11:30 after all the presses and stuff. She was there.
Yeah, she did. Well, she
said see ya, and then I roll in the day after at 11 o'clock, and she's there for the Collingwood after the Carlton West Coast game.
And then she did the double shift.
I asked her, like, did you go home? She goes, a
little bit. No. Yeah, she either lives at the stadium or very close by. But and she did the double shift on the Saturday. Unreal. But that's the sort of thing that makes Gather Round special,
Yeah, those kind of people.
Yeah. Also, treasure hunt. So we set some goals for ourselves at the start of this Gather Round.
Yeah. You can go. We'll have that video out.
Yeah.
In this week, but we did at least get some props for the show.
Yeah.
After having to decide what badges.
Yeah.
Got my Alex Chincotta badge. There you go. The guy at the
How much did you pay for yours?
It was $8.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right,
they just spiked them.
No, well, I thought, because I got Christian Moraes, and I thought $8 was steep, because I thought it was going to be, I thought they were going to be like $5 or something.
I feel like they've always kind of been that price. I don't know. But anyway, the guy, when I asked Alex Chincotta, he goes, who does he play for? And then I was like, Carlton. He goes, okay. And then he's still got like 40 to go through, and he's like, I'm like, he's number 39. He
Yeah.
goes, okay, thanks. And then he's like still going through them all.
Did you get your AFL lookalike?
I did, yeah.
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 I got mine.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, it doesn't count.
Yes.
I'm gonna win this because
Well, we're
you
gonna let
can't.
people decide. I reckon mine looks more like an AFL lookalike than yours
No,
does.
you're so wrong.
Okay.
We'll have them side by side because
Yeah.
I think we got them all on.
We also have to get South Australian foods still. We're still here for another day. We can get that done. And then what was the other one?
I don't know.
Oh, worst footy merch. Or best worst footy merch.
Oh yeah, I got my
And I
Future
got
Ball
mine.
tee,
Yeah.
and you got your Brisbane.
Your what?
The Future Ball tee.
That's not even that's not
It's
footy-
best /
that doesn't
worst.
count.
That's footy merch,
Yeah, but it doesn't count.
like
That's not a
best.
team.
but it's merch.
All right, we'll let the people decide this because
I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win the lookalike thing anyway. So
Whatever. All right.
we'll stay tuned for that.
Cool. All right. So what's next? So sort of gone under the radar. So everybody's just talking about Carlton getting the monkey off their back. They finally got a win.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, West Coast.
We talk about the monkey off the back. Geez, I'll tell you what, Michael Voss post game.
Yeah.
Like if you're a West Coast player or coach or whatever, and you see what Michael Voss kind of had to say, it's like he didn't really feel anything about the game. Like it just felt like good, got the win, let's move on. Like it didn't, not that he was intentionally being disrespectful to the opposition, but it just didn't seem like, it was that big breakthrough for them. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the next win's going to be the really important one.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like, the vibe you can kind of get is that he knew the opposition he was coming up against wasn't going to be
Yeah.
potentially all that competitive, and blimey, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, was it 77 contested possessions or something? Like that's all-time
It's their
lows.
worst. Yeah. Worst
All-time
in
low
club
since
history.
that's an all-time low since stats. Like it's not just a West Coast
right.
problem, I think.
In champion data history or something.
Well, like
as well.
since the
Yeah.
stats have been taken. But also I think it's also their worst start in club history. Like 0-5.
Yeah.
Don't know if they've had a few lean years the last couple of seasons. They've never started this bad. Obviously, there was a lot of talk before it with the Tim Kelly decision. He's not going to make that much of a difference in there. But geez, he would have maybe not had them at 77 contested possessions for the game. But look, that's still a call that I think you got to respect from Andrew McGualter that if your senior leaders aren't doing the job, whether it's on field or a behaviour standpoint or standards or whatever it is, you got to make that call. And I don't know if there's a win option for him heading into round 6. Like, do you bring Tim Kelly back in? Like, did he do enough? I think he had 20 touches, a few inside 50s, and a goal in the waffle. But if you bring him in and he plays well, it's great that he's responded, but at the same time, you're still taking back, the kind of reason that another reason that you drop him is to get some youth in and give them a look. So it's going to be quite an interesting balance to see its selection this week. But obviously they prioritise some of their youth. Like they brought Graham and Baker in, and a lot of people question, why are they bringing these kind of guys in middle of their careers when you still want to keep rebuilding. But if they didn't have those two, geez, I couldn't imagine what the game would have looked like, even though it was a bit of a nightmare for them nonetheless. So it's like, they're not at the bottom of their rebuild. You might think they're not at the bottom of their rebuild, which is like quite stunning. Like you feel like they've been there for a little bit. Obviously they had quite a slow start on the draft front when they didn't have the picks from the Kelly trade. I think they took Campbell Chesser at pick 14 in 2021, which was quite an interesting selection. And then 2022 they had Jimby and Hewitt, which is a nice big step. Then they get Harley Reid, and then they got Bo Allen last year after trading back out of pick 3. But it does feel like they could have a long way to go. And
this has to be the bottom though.
No, but like if they lose Oscar Allen, right?
Yeah.
They probably get free agency compensation as a band 1. So if they finish last, they get pick 2 as well, which is going to help. It's not going to help any of their chances of getting a priority pick, though. I wouldn't have thought if they're already holding picks 1 and 2.
If they're performing like this granted, wait, is Oscar Allen playing? No.
Yeah, he's playing.
If they're performing like this with Oscar Allen in the team,
that's
worse than letting him
interesting.
go, and then because you're going to get compensation for it, then you're on the up of a rebuild. But if you're performing like this with him in the team,
I'm not saying keeping him is necessarily the best for them in the rebuild. Like he's not that old though.
Yeah,
he's 26 or whatever, 25, 26. You'd love to keep him. Harley Reid's going to be the big one.
Yeah,
I don't see him not at West Coast end of this year. But if they know that he's not going to be there another year away, do you just try and cash in and just say whoever's got someone's going to offer something stupid, like not stupid, but just like kind of eye catching, even if you are West Coast. So
It's going
to be quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, it comes down to picks. It comes down to more than anything. Like the money he'll get is going to be big no matter who's offering it.
Yeah.
Probably Carlton are the only ones that probably can't afford him.
I mean, like, is there a way that he gets to Melbourne if we're losing Clary?
You don't have well, that's the other thing. Like we could have talked about if you guys are going to bottom out as well.
Yeah.
You'd have to be cashing out on Petrarca and maybe that might.
I mean, if Cozzy only wants to go to FREO, then it's an issue. But like, if he's happy to go to West Coast, then there might be something there.
But anyway, it's a bit of a what now for West Coast. Like, are they just like, and when we talked about the appointment of McWalter, and some probably thought it was a poison chalice, like the first coach that was going to take on this huge job of getting this list back to being competitive probably wasn't going to be the one that was there when they were finally going to be competitive again. So, we saw so many coaches turn down that job that they had kind of hoped to at least talk to. And I like Minnie. I think he's going to be a fine coach. Seems like a good player person, but it just might be too much of a hill to climb.
Well, the big fear now is with teams like West Coast that are essentially bottoming out, and Melbourne, who might bottom out as well, is then there's always Tassie looming. Like the timing of it is almost worse than
that's what,
because then even if you go to the coaching market in 2 to 3 years, if it's not McWalter, that Tassie job is going to be on the market as well. Although they'll probably want to sign someone pretty I don't know. Yeah,
I think I'd like to think McWalter lasts a little bit. Like they're not just going to move him, but like you're right. Like if Tassie are trying to get a John Longmire. If Ken Hinkley when he's back available, or another good coach on the open market. It'll be fascinating to see what kind of moves West Coast think they might have to make. But like they've got Don Pike and they've got John Worsfold supporting McWalter, and I'd like to think that's enough there already. Yeah.
Now, sad times. We'll see what they do. Next on the rundown, player you misjudged.
Yeah, this is just a bit of a put my hand up. I got this wrong. I'm not sure if I said anything publicly, but like probably 2021, maybe 2022 season, I just thought Steele Sidebottom was at the end. I thought he just,
I think everyone did.
Like he's 34 now. Like he's 31, 32, around that age. A lot of players don't make it that far in their career. And I thought, like a premiership player, such a strong run and such a consistent player for so long that I thought, it's probably about time that he passes the baton over and they look to the future. Now, 2021 season was when, they kind of only won a handful of games, finished quite low on the ladder. And then they bounced back in 2022, obviously. And I think he was still kind of at a similar level, despite them making the prelim. But then, 23, 24, and in 2025, which I'll touch on more deeply in a second, he's just been such a big key for them, such a big role player is probably a bit harsh on that, but he's been such a big cog in their system under Craig McRae for the last 2.5 seasons, and but completely misjudged, completely got this wrong. And I'm so happy that he didn't see that 2021-2022 season as maybe a way to finish it, and that he's now potentially, whenever he does retire, going to do it maybe on a high, which is going to be absolutely awesome.
But I think that is in terms of being a role player, that is why he's doing so well, I think. And I think that's what Collingwood have done really well with both Steele and Pendlebury is, when they're coming to the end of what should be the end of their careers. They might play for another 10 years at this point. And the same with Geelong, like they, Dangerfield moving him from purely midfielder to spending more time on the forward line. I think that is what the good clubs do. And I don't, coming from a club that probably isn't going to be doing that very well, it's just, it's good to see. And I think that is a big help. Is Steele, he's not playing the same role as he was 5 years ago.
This is the nuts thing though. Like he's always been that outside player, and now he's playing inside. He's averaging career best numbers from a contested possession point of view. Like his best before that was his 2018 season when they made the grand final, and he polled 24 votes in the Brownlow to finish second, which was pretty nuts at the time. Like it was a pretty silly, a crazy outcome that count with I think Mitchell and Brayshaw were the others on the podium. And he's just playing an inside role and he's doing it so well for them. So he's probably been, Dacos has been, still Dacos, but I think he's probably been their best player to start this season. Sidebottom at 34 years of age. And, like I said, misjudged it, got it wrong. and now I'm right on the train to see him have such a good year.
Yeah, it's finally good to see you own up to your actions, mate.
Be back next week for
I've always said you need to face some consequences. Okay, so we have our next item on the rundown. So there's 4 off-contract players that are set for big pay rises. So Nasaya Wanganeen-Millera, Matt Rowell, Tom DeConning, and Ed Richards.
Yeah, 4 names. Like, there's probably a few more, and I'll get into some honourable mentions maybe, but 4 names who are just... I think Ed Richards is a free agent. Tom DeConing's a free agent, so those 2 are hitting that like year 7, year 8 mark. I think Richards is in that case. Matt Rowell's got a few seasons to go, and Wanganeen-Millera even more before those guys reach their free agency. But they're all off contract, and they're all either having they're all having career best years. It looks like Ed Richards' breakout last year was awesome for them.
Yeah.
Like when they're not using McRae and they don't have Bailey Smith, and they just look to someone to stand up. And Ed Richards is probably the reason why McRae, wasn't getting that gig that he had held for so long, because of what they had found in Ed Richards over the summer prior. So he's putting up absolutely fantastic performances week in, week out. Like, they don't have the Bont. Lib is still as reliable as ever, but he might be their best performer to start this year potentially. Wouldn't think you'd leave the Dogs, but he's certainly going to earn himself a nice big paycheck, I would like to think, in that next deal. And they've got Bont to figure out. They've got Treloar's contract to figure out, who's another one who hasn't played yet. But even when those 2 come back, I'd like to think Ed Richards is still playing at the level he is now, like he did last year too.
Yeah.
Tom DeConing, obviously a lot being said about him already, and his next contract and who that's with. If it's a Carlton, it's still going to be a pretty good deal, I would think. But sounds like if it's St Kilda, it's going to be, perhaps is the best paid player in the comp. And he's just enjoying such a breakout season. Like, he was really good last year before that injury. But now he's, had that full preseason, and he's, arguably been one of the, probably a top 3 ruck to start the year, if not one. So yeah, again, and like I said, there's been a bit mentioned on the kind of figures that he could sign and the type of money that you really can't turn down. So that's going to be quite an interesting one. Matt Rowell, I hope he stays at the Suns, and if he does stay at the Suns, it's probably not going to be the best deal on the open market for him, but I'd like to think that they'd still be competitive on the monetary front. Arguably the form player of the competition at the moment. Looks to be enjoying his footy, and as we mentioned earlier in the show, has that kind of dual-paced game now instead of just being that inside hard-nosed ball winner. So it's going to be interesting to see what that call is. He's going to have heaps of interest and probably some good offers on the table. But either way, he's going to have a nice paycheck next year as well, and deservingly so if his form continues the way it has been this year. And then Nasaya Wanganeen-Millera, he's only drafted in 2021.
Yeah.
He's quite young.
So young.
It's going to be fascinating to see what his move is. So off contract this year. Both SA clubs would rightfully have interest, and St Kilda might be able to blow them out of the water when it comes to money. But with footballs, it's not always about the size of the contract and the pay. It can be about being close to family and being back home. So it's going to be fascinating. And if he wants to re-sign with St Kilda, like, how long is that deal going to be? If it's a 2-year deal, I think that takes him to the Tassie market, which is not to say that he'd really be picking Tassie over maybe the Saints or Adelaide or Adelaide or Port Adelaide, but might make things interesting with the kind of power that Tassie might have at that time. If it's a 4-year deal, then I think that takes him to free agency, which seems like the smartest one if he's going to re-sign the Saints. 1-year deal doesn't make really any sense, if anything. So
it would be such a St Kilda thing if he went to Tassie and then won a premiership. Tassie, but if they can re-sign him and get Tom DeConning,
I think he should be their priority.
Absolutely, he's a franchise
Tom
player.
DeConning, he've got Rowan Marshall. He's going to cost a pretty penny anyway. But yeah, I think try and get Nasaya Wanganeen-Millera's contract knocked on the head first, and then obviously you can try and do both at the same time. But he should be, out of all the players they've been linked to, he should be the one that's their number one. Yeah. And just a couple others to mention. Miles Bergman's having such a great season at Port Adelaide. He'll be a fascinating one if he looks to come back to Victoria. Nathan O'Driscoll, from memory, I think he's off contract, and he had a pretty good start to the year at Fremantle before injury, so he'll be back in a few weeks. And Cam McKenzie's the other one, stepping up this year in Sam Mitchell's midfield. I don't think he has a deal for next year either. So there are a couple others that I think deserve some nice little pay upgrades.
Yeah, I'm already getting. Can you get like preemptive PTSD for trade period at all? Or no? Okay. Anyway, I just know that I'm just going to be saying these names a lot in the next couple of years. So no, good point. Very big contracts coming for those four. Cool. I think that wraps up for this past round. Let's move ahead to round 6. Post gather round. Is that what we're calling it?
Call it round
Easter
6.
round?
Round 6. It's a good thing
I feel like every round should be named something.
Oh, God.
Okay, so round 6, we have the Pies versus Lions on the Thursday. That is going to be interesting. Where is that one at?
I think it's at the Gabba. Yeah, it's at the Gabba.
Yeah. I mean, Lions look good. They're not playing a first half of football, but I think they will start to.
Yeah, it's going to be... I lean towards Lions. Pies still without Houston, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, not that he's the difference maker, but he's a pretty big piece in what they're doing. But, Friday night, they looked pretty good without him still. But no, I think the Lions just probably have the depth. The Ashcroft brothers versus the Dacos brothers will be interesting.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, I'll take Lions pretty comfortably, but they'll be behind at halftime and then come back and win by 6 goals. Classic Good Friday, North versus Blues. North sneaky chance. I don't know. Still not convinced on the Blues.
It wasn't like the most convincing thing from Carlton.
Yeah,
but I think like North might smell a bit of blood in the water still from what they've seen from Carlton, and they want to be bouncing back, like competitive with Gold Coast. But I think
I've got faith.
Bruce fans don't want to just be competitive. They don't want the honourable losses. They want 4 points. And Good Friday at Marvel, packed house is always kind of a nice vibe. So this is good. This could be quite a close contest.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how many get to this game. Adelaide versus GWS, banger.
It should be pretty good. Like Adelaide, back-to-back losses, but close in both of them against Gold Coast and Geelong, two good sides, and they come up against another one in GWS. This is that period where they had some good wins early, the Crows, and they're knocked off some sides. But this kind of 3-week stretch, if they can't beat GWS, more questions are going to be raised. Obviously, it depends how you lose, but 3 losses in a row against clubs that are contending might suggest that maybe they're not in that branch just yet.
Yeah, I like GWS's defense too, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they come up against Adelaide's big 3-pronged forward line. A classic is this Easter Monday game, Geelong versus Hawthorn.
Yeah, Hawks will probably expect a nice response from them after what they dished up to start gather round, and Geelong just looking like what they've always done.
They just play on.
But this game,
they're going to make a granny. I just know it.
No matter where these two sides have sat over the last even 5 years, like when Hawthorn probably weren't a competing club, they were always close games, and the Hawks still knocked off a few upsets over the Cats. So again, expect this one to be a nice tight contest, and maybe game of the round to finish it.
I think so. Yeah,
there's a few good ones this week.
Yeah,
like Sydney Port Adelaide's another one that could be quite interesting.
Oh yeah,
get a good read on where those two really sit.
Port. I'm just. I feel like they're going to have some momentum coming out of that.
Be interesting.
Hawks win, but that's Sydney, right? That's at
it's
Sydney.
At the SCG.
Yeah. No, I don't mind Port. All right, I think that's it. That's a wrap on Gather Round. Oh my god, it's been such a long way. I mean, we've been here for like a week. But shout out to the city of Adelaide.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Well, we've had heaps of content go up, obviously.
Yeah.
Like from our road trip video to all the fan content, some of the other fun stuff that we've done over here.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit more to come with our treasure hunt.
We got some
heaps,
some good stuff, some streaker. Also, a big shout out to everybody that has followed or found out about Zero Hanger over this weekend. We've had a big jump in followers across all our social channels in YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And it was nice to meet some people at the footy festival.
Yeah, great.
And, everyone's been really, really cool.
That's probably another thing we should have mentioned at the top. Everyone just has such a good time. Like no one's just there to just like
to cause trouble.
Yeah.
It's just. I mean, there's absolutely some people that have gone overboard. Like I reckon people are just having a good time all day and then rolling into the footy at 7. But it is just a good vibe. Yeah.
Enjoy it how you can. Yeah.
Yeah, even if and it's great even if you're, you have young kids and stuff. Like, it's just that's one thing that I've noted throughout the whole weekend is that like all the kids are just having the absolute time of their life. Like, especially the little footy obsessed kids.
God, it'd be fun to be a local, wouldn't it? I think like there's probably some of the Lyndoch locals up in the Barossa probably might have had a few headaches with all the traffic that just comes and goes. But but I feel like if you're on the of Adelaide, it might not be too busy, and you can kind of roll into a heaving city and just have everyone in that melting pot of footy fans. So
All right. Cool. Well, thank you, Adelaide. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Adelaide Oval, and we'll see you next week.